We are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other. And that I am not a ward of America. I am not an object of missionary charity. I am one of the people who built the country. Until this moment, there is scarcely any hope for the American dream, because the people who are denied participation in it, by their very presence, will wreck it. And if that happens, it's a very grave moment for the West. Thank you.
So that was the great author, activist. I mean, I'm not doing it justice as far as everything that he was able to do, but that was James Baldwin, one of my favorite authors. And we felt like that was the perfect way to start off this podcast. There's a thought that anytime you're thinking of saying something, somebody else probably said it better at some point. And I think that was perfect for the things that we want to cover.
Agreed. I hadn't heard of James Baldwin much before last year, but he's become more present in our life, and I think a lot of people are getting educated and hearing more of kind of his teachings. I'm actually not familiar with what he did professionally. He was a writer?
Yeah, he was a writer.
Okay. All right.
And I'm telling you, I'm not doing it justice.
An orator.
I could sit there. I mean, I do. Not I could. Like, I sit there and listen to his videos for hours. There's this one conversation piece he has with Professor Nikki Giovanni.
Yeah.
We at some point this season we'll have to cover it.
Yeah.
We'll have to. It's really such an insightful conversation between the two of them.
Yeah.
I mean, you sent me this text like 2 days ago, I think it was. I read it. I had to stop kind of whatever I was doing, and I was like, wow, this is powerful. This is profound, and this is a statement that I think we as humans probably don't recognize or take as seriously as we probably should.
Right, agreed. And I think a lot of people have either thought this or seen it or heard it, but it's really taken a second to step back and be like, to comprehend the perspectives of others, we have to be able to define our own. And I think as we're going into our late 20s here, we're really starting to define who we are. Everybody matures differently, but I think we're at the point where we really need to take a stance on who we are, what we stand for, and kind of stay solid with that.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot of ideas out there right now that, aren't the most positive, aren't like really beneficial to the growth of us as a nation here in the United States, but also to us individually, culturally, where we come from. There's a lot of people that try to push culture down or really kind of forget where we came from, but our roots are really important. Our roots are really, really important, and I think it's important to understand and really listen to other people as well. Understand their culture, see how we could, trade certain things, benefit off of certain cultural traditions that we might not know, and really educate people from our own culture. I think as, offspring of immigrants, I know you don't like offspring, but coming from...
You know what I say? I was like, don't make me sound like a plant. Like, don't call me offspring ever. No. Coming from a family of immigrants, it's kind of hard to assimilate into the American culture and try to maintain your own. And I think it's very important to really stay connected to your roots. So that brings us to where we are today. Yeah, for sure. I think introductions are in place here.
All right, so welcome, y'all. This is the Semi-Americans podcast. You've got your host here, Eddie Ramirez, and
Emmanuel, and I sometimes go by Manny Flacco, also known as a couple nicknames only my mom's allowed to call me, and I think that's pretty much it. I think I'm running out of aliases.
You only had one? Yep.
Only had one alias.
So we got Eddie the Petty, Manny Flacco, Emmanuel B, Emmanuel S, Emmanuel BS, but he's not full of BS. It's all real.
I love it. Right? No, that's great. Perfect.
So let's get started with first how we came up with the Semi-Americans podcast, and I'm gonna let you explain it just because this is your brainchild.
I think I've helped a little bit, but this is like
You've done more
your
than
big
a little
idea.
bit. No, not at all. This idea wouldn't have come to fruition. You like that word, fruition? I'm trying to sound smart out here.
Offspring.
No, when we were trying to come up with a name for a podcast, because we had discussed doing a podcast probably for years at this point.
Yeah.
And it had just been kind of like like we should do one, and then no action following it. So when we got to it, I think we were trying to come up with a title, and I think we were on a phone conversation. So at some point over the summer, we were talking, and I was like, "Hey, man, like I think we should go for it. We should do it." And your response, fortunately, was, "Yeah, let's go for it. Let's do it."
Yep.
And I was happy to hear it. And then the thought process was, should we come up with something that would like encapsulate our experiences as far as growing up in the U.S. I don't remember exactly how it came to me. I wish I had a cool story where I was like, oh, and then it hit me out of nowhere kind of deal. But I don't know, I had a conversation with my dad where we were kind of discussing this topic of growing up and not really feeling like you fit in with a certain culture or nationality. And, I'll credit his friend. His friend was like, well, your son's like a hybrid. But then titling a podcast The Hybrid.
Hybrid Americans.
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't, I don't know if that would stick. So I was like, you know what? It's like semi-American, I think, pretty much takes care of that and describes it to a better point. And you felt the same way. I'm sure we've definitely had conversations related to feeling like you don't necessarily fit in, and as a typical American, but not also fitting in your home country. It's kind of like you're in between, right? So to me, like as far as being a semi-American means to be between two worlds, or maybe even multiple worlds, on the basis of culture, nationality, religion, upbringing, etc., and kind of trying to figure out exactly where you fit in. And there's nothing wrong with not even fitting in. That I think that's a realization that both of us have come to as we've gotten older.
Yeah, agreed. I think, even if you feel like you're fully embraced by the American society, you still have to learn how to maneuver, right? Mm-hmm. As a colored person. Can I say that? Is that okay?
Yeah,
colored
of course.
people? Yeah. So everybody has their own obstacles that they've gone through. Being raised in a household that has cultural traditions that your parents have brought over, as immigrants, and how that impacts how you are perceived by others. There's a contradiction between how others perceive you and how you perceive yourself. And I think trying to express that, trying to communicate that to other people really kind of hinders us in our growth in a way as children. Mm-hmm. And, I think it's a beneficial talking point. What is it to be a semi-American? Mm-hmm. What are we doing here? How do we feel comfortable in our skin, in our culture, mm-hmm. but also with our nationality of being Americans, mm-hmm. or being a part of America?
Right.
To me, I took a second to write this down. Mm-hmm. What is a semi-American? Mm-hmm. A person, usually a descendant of immigrants, who is outside of the mainframe that the American society was built for. Mm-hmm. We participate within the society, but have additional hurdles to obtain our believed potential. Mm-hmm. Semi-Americans have recently started having an inside look into the existing systems, and I think it's our responsibility, and it should be our goal, to define our positions both individually, mm-hmm. and as a community. Mm-hmm. So that's what semi-Americans really means to me. And not to say that all of our conversations are going to be serious and about cultural topics, but, we'll talk about current events. We'll talk about things that are going on, have a couple laughs, but also kind of have a goal to, hear other people's perspectives. If there's any listeners on at some point that want to come on, sure, we'll bring you on and have a conversation with you and kind of see what your perspective is. So Manny's Ethiopian by descent. I guess is that proper? Oh God, I don't even know what's proper. Emmanuel's Ethiopian by descent. From El Salvador. My parents are from El Salvador. You're muted. Come on, man. Come on. All right, we're figuring this out. So,
I can't believe I did that. And I asked you before we started. I was like, blinking means mute. Yeah. You're like, yeah.
So Emmanuel's Ethiopian. I'm Salvadorian. Both my parents are from El Salvador. I consider myself.
What do you consider yourself?
So I was born in D.C., right? Mm-hmm. And growing up as a kid, I was like, I'm fully American.
Shout out to D.C.
Yeah, I would say,
Virginia,
up until...
But not Maryland.
I would say, like, well into middle... Yeah, not Maryland. Not Maryland.
Just kidding. Maryland's all right.
Yeah. My cousins live there.
Yeah, same.
They're a little hood, but it's all right. It's all right. So, but yeah, growing up, I definitely considered myself fully American. I remember being a kid and being like, nope, I'm American. I'm not Salvadorian. And I'm not sure if it was pushed onto me by my mom. She definitely wanted to incorporate me heavily into like American society.
Right.
Bro, as a kid, I would be like, I wish I could take the Salvadorian blood out of me. I used to say that.
Wow, to that point.
Yeah, because I was like, I didn't feel a connection. Now,
but you spoke the language, you
Yep.
ate the food.
Yep.
The culture was still present within the home.
Yep.
But yet you felt no connection to it.
I felt no connection. I was just like, nah, that's not me. I'm not that.
Where did that come from?
I don't know.
I mean, this is when you're younger. Obviously, you don't feel that way anymore. But
No. Definitely not anymore. Mm-hmm. I mean, now I'm like watching the El Salvador soccer games.
Right.
Like, come on,
low key.
Yeah. Like I'm looking up soccer jerseys and their jerseys a little whack.
Yeah.
But they have this black
ES.
colorway. Yeah. It just has the ES.
Yeah.
But they have this nice black colorway that I'm looking into.
Okay.
Yeah, no, as a kid I was just like, no, I'm not Salvadorian. And funny thing is, although I was born in DC, my mom was working at this time she wasn't with my stepdad. Mm-hmm. And my dad wasn't in the picture. So at about 6 months, she was like, I can't handle having a baby and trying to work. I also had 2 siblings down in El Salvador that she had left when she immigrated here.
Right.
So at 6 months, she decided to take me down to El Salvador and have my aunt raise me for a couple years while, she got her finances straight over here and figured out what her plan was. So... she would travel back and forth every couple months as she could. Mm-hmm. And I was just down there up until about the age of, I think it was 4, could have been 5.
Okay.
But definitely ingrained in El Salvador. I mean, I don't have, my memory is garbage. Yeah. So I don't remember anything from over there. But eventually I came back. I was 4 or 5, spoke Spanish, ate like a Salvadorian, tortillas, pupusas, everything, So I think that also had an impact because as soon as I got here, I think I was going to preschool down there.
Okay.
Actually. So when I got here and I went to preschool here, I must have had a culture shock. I don't remember that, but I feel like it probably happened. And I think that led to me being like, no, I'm American.
I'm wondering if, was there like a significant experience that happened that kind of caused you to be so averse to, being a Salvadorian or identifying as such?
I don't think so, because we went to a pretty diverse elementary school. I only remember 2 white people going to that school.
Yeah,
do you remember? Because
we'd have to go dig up the yearbook, to be honest with you.
Yeah. No, I don't remember any, besides 2 white people. It was Amber and... I don't know, some dude named Hunter or something. It was probably... Oh, God. No offense to any hunters out there.
So you learned English from an early age, though?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't go to ESL. I wasn't in ESL or nothing.
I did.
I was pretty... I used to be
like 2
proud.
months,
I used to be proud. I was like, never went to ESL.
Dang.
Yeah.
I used to want to keep being in ESL.
Really?
I didn't know English. They kicked me out the class because they thought I knew English. I was just guessing through some of the tests. I remember not knowing what a ruler was. Like, there was a test to, like, test out of it. And, you know, we're going through it, and there's a picture of a ruler, and they're like, what is this called? I had no idea what it was called.
Dang.
But I remember guessing ruler and then getting it right. And then, you know, whatever else the rest of the test was, like, pulled me off of ESL. And I was like, y'all, like, my English is still not good. Like, I'm still struggling.
You were just a good test taker.
Yeah, accidental.
Yeah.
The accidental good test taker. Back in the day, not anymore, but yeah. No, I mean, being proud of not being in ESL, like...
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
even, like, through middle school, and I think even high school, there was still a lot of hate. Maybe not hate, but, like, we're different than the ESL kids.
It carried, like, a negative connotation.
Yeah, definitely. You know, now that I'm a bit more grown, it's definitely not the same feeling.
Isn't that interesting how we try to equate understanding a language with intelligence?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like some of the smartest immigrants, I'm talking like people that have PhDs in like nuclear science, or, you know, it doesn't just have to be something science related. Could be in literature, whatever. Their grasp of the I can't even speak English right now. Their grasp of the English language might not be as strong as someone who grew up here, but it has no bearing on their intelligence. But yet, you know, when they're applying for jobs or things like that, we look at English proficiency. And there's a difference, of course, between speaking the language and grammar. And, you know, there's so many different parts of language that we don't take into consideration. But that's interesting that you said, you know, it carried a negative connotation to be in ESL when those people they're striving to improve their proficiency within language.
Definitely.
You know, without any relation to intelligence. But that's how we saw it back then. I'm sure I felt good about not being in ESL anymore after some time, but I definitely need a couple more months.
Yeah. And I mean, taking it back to what you were saying about, was there an impactful time? I think for all of us, 9/11 was pretty impactful. We were in third grade when that happened.
Yeah.
And I think the whole, you know, nationalism thing of being like, oh, we're American, like, this is America, like, we're going to defend America, was pushed on us in a way that we didn't really understand. And, you know, of course, like, America is what's given us the opportunity to speak how we speak and do what we do and carry the professions that we have and live the life that we do. I mean, despite not having it all right now, we have luxuries available to us that are definitely not available in our home countries.
For sure. And that's a deeper conversation. I know we talked about this earlier, but we'll definitely, you know, delve into that topic of the differences as far as opportunity is concerned. America, you know, versus our home countries.
Yep.
You know.
And I think to us as children, and maybe it was just me, I'm very competitive. It comes with kind of like an air of superiority. Growing up in a pretty diverse community, it didn't seem like having Salvadorian heritage was really important. Now there's a ton of Salvadorians in this area. But it wasn't really available until like middle school. I remember like the first pupuseria opened up over on Glebe Road.
Okay.
Shout out Doña Susana.
Hey.
Yep, they got the best pupusas still after like 20 plus years.
Yeah, queso y frijoles. Gracias. That's all I do. I'll call it up. You heard me on the phone. Hey, don't ask me anything about condiments.
Yep.
I can't answer anything about condiments. I'm just going to keep repeating queso y frijoles. Por favor, gracias. And keep it moving.
Yeah. And also, you know, El Salvador being a little bit of, you know, had the highest homicide rate, what have you, murder capital of the world. You know, it kind of made me distance myself from that. And it wasn't until maybe high school where I started, like, really considering what my culture is, right? Because I was definitely a floater as a kid, didn't really connect with a ton of people. And I was like, who am I? Right? And, that starts as early as, 13, 14. And it wasn't really up until,
Maybe
I don't know,
even
25,
younger.
26
Yeah.
that I really came to define who I am.
You said 25, 26?
Yeah.
So like 2 years ago.
Yeah. No, it wasn't until recently that I was like, oh, damn, okay, this is who I am. This is what I stand for, right? And, we're here now.
Yeah.
So give us a little bit about your background.
So it's like so many different backgrounds. So I'm Ethiopian. Both my parents are full Ethiopian. My parents met in Russia. I was born in Ethiopia, and then we spent a couple of years, not a couple of years, it was like almost 7 years in Germany as refugees / immigrants. And then I came to the States when I was about 8, a few months shy of 8. And then we've been in this area since. And you're the oldest friend that I have. We've known each other for over 20 years now. Crazy to think about. We met at William Ramsey, 3rd grade. Well, I started off at 2nd grade because I never really finished 2nd grade. And then my pops was like, no, you're not going to hold them back. And you know how my dad is.
Yeah.
So
The professor.
Shout outs to my pops. Shout outs to Ma. Shout outs to my little sister. So he worked out a way that I could test into 3rd grade, and then I think that's when you and I started hanging out a little bit more, and you would come over to the house after school. I think we spent almost every day after school together, doing homework, you trying Ethiopian food, and actually liking it, which is amazing for a young kid to be into spicy food like that.
It was some of it that I liked. Some of it was
all right, we're gonna
definitely
edit that part
foreign.
out.
It was definitely foreign.
You remember I had heartburn when I was like 8 years old, bro. 'Cause I can't I look back on it and I was eating the spicy food, drinking like orange juice on top of it, and it's like, huh.
I do remember that now that you mention it, man.
Why is my stomach
orange
hurting?
juice was like water to you, bro.
Good times. No, I would not be able to handle any of that now. Like one buffalo wing might take me out.
Yeah.
So
Got the lactate on hand too.
Hey, yo, don't put my business on shit like this. So, anyways, yeah. So we've been in this area, a pretty diverse area. I'm sure if we ended up in a different place, region, whatever in the U.S., my story and my path would have definitely been different. Same with my parents and the rest of my family. I think I've always considered myself Ethiopian, no matter where I am. Even when I was in Germany, I think it all comes down to how much your parents instill in you too. So you kind of mentioned your mom was trying to instill Americanism in you.
Yeah, right? That is true.
That was not the case with my parents. Like when I come home and I'm trying to speak a different language, my parents are acting like they don't understand me if I don't speak an Amharic. I credit all that to them. Otherwise, I would have forgotten it. I wouldn't be able to speak now. As far as the culture is concerned, like religious events, right? Religious celebrations and all that, we still maintain that. The food, as we talked about. And just the overall care for country and keeping up with current events in Ethiopia, all that was instilled by my parents. So I felt like I still, obviously feel a strong connection to Ethiopia. I still call it my home country. I'll have people ask me, oh, where are you from? Ethiopia. Never have I said, like, America. It just, I don't know, it doesn't roll off the tongue the same way. It really doesn't. So for me, it's been about maintaining my Ethiopian culture and identity the whole time I've been here. And then I don't think it's been until like recently, probably in the past like 6-7 years, that I've started to feel like, man, maybe I don't fit in all the way. Because I haven't been back, for political reasons and whatnot. And then it just didn't work out because of school, whatever, things just didn't work out. I do want to go at some point, hopefully, God willing, in the next 2 to 3 years.
So to be clear, you've never been back since you were born?
Since I left, yeah.
So 1 year old?
Yeah, celebrated my birthday, said deuces.
That was your birthday gift.
Yeah. I guess. Is it a gift though?
Is it your birthday?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just, and we'll definitely have to talk about the events leading to us not being able to continue our lives in Ethiopia.
Right.
Because there's so many.
Yeah. The reasons why your parents immigrated here is part of why you feel semi-American.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a connection that will. It's like, if this season 1 has themes and arcs, then that'll be one of them for sure. So you start to meet. I would meet some Ethiopians in like college that did maybe like lived in Ethiopia through high school and then would come here, and then I'd be able to engage in conversation because I know the language. But then there's a lot of like slang that goes over my head because I never grew up learning slang, cuss words. Like I got it from my parents. So obviously they're not teaching me that. And that's kind of like when you start to notice, oh, maybe I'm not all the way into the culture as I thought I was. And then another part of it is they'll look at you a little bit different too. The ones that spent so much time in Ethiopia, they'll look at you like, oh no, you're not really Ethiopian. Like you may know the language. But the funny part is, I probably know, and this isn't, whatever, flex, humble brag, whatever you want to call it. I probably know a good bit of the history more than they do. Because I do a lot of reading. Because like I said, I care about my country. And when I say my country, it's so natural for me to say my country and refer to Ethiopia.
Yeah.
It's not to say that I'm not grateful for the opportunities that America's presented to my family and I, but my blood is Ethiopian. Like that's how I still view it.
Yeah.
So going back to that, I think when I met those people and at points I would feel like I don't really fit in with them, because it's not just the slang and everything, whatever, but there's also a component of when you grow up there, your upbringing is different. The way that you act is different. And for me, I don't necessarily, like my values or my interests don't necessarily align well with theirs, So I started to feel like a little out of place. But then, like you said, so profoundly at the beginning of this, right? When you mentioned it's about like finding yourself and feeling comfortable with yourself. And that's a journey it's a never ending journey, really, right? You just get to a point where you say, all right, I feel good about where I'm at currently, but you shouldn't get like complacent. There's always room for improvement, right?
Right.
I would say the same for me. Probably 3-4 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm 28 now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 28 too. So you can relate to some extent, I'm sure, as far as that. No, you know what? This is okay. I'll fit into the box of a semi-American. That's cool.
Yeah.
Like, I may not be all the way into American culture as you would expect. Now, don't get me wrong. I feel like I can fit in with people that identify themselves as American, whether it's culture, whether it's even past the culture, whether it's just like in conversation, being aware of this country's history as well, all of that, I feel comfortable enough. But I don't feel like, they make the comment sometimes of our forefathers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, no.
George Washington wasn't my forefather.
Yeah,
Come
definitely
on,
not.
You think Thomas Jefferson my forefather? No.
Definitely not.
Yeah, I can't relate on that level. So it's kind of like you're in the middle of those multiple worlds. Yeah. And like I said, my parents studied out in Russia. So there's that component too. They speak the language, and there's like food, for example. You're always raving about my parents' Russian potatoes, and that comes from their time in Russia. Really, my household is a collection of all these different cultures.
Yeah.
And sometimes, sure, it's like, man, I don't fully fit in with one, but that's okay. But that's like what makes it unique, and that's why it makes our individual experiences unique.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, part of growing up is wanting to fit in, wanting to feel like you belong. And, we were lucky. Like you said, this area is full of Ethiopians. I'm pretty sure, like little Ethiopia. And it's also little El Salvador. So I think we were kind of lucky in having that always in the background. Just like I said, having the pupuseria pop up and then having a couple other places serving carne asada, like that kind of got me more acquainted with the culture that I came from.
That's a great point. I think that's such a great point to make because it's in our backyard.
Yep.
And we are exposed enough to it, right?
I mean, if we weren't, like, who knows? Maybe we might consider ourselves more American.
Yeah.
Than our culture because we wouldn't have been exposed as much.
Yeah, I hadn't given that much thought, to be honest with you. Like, it's hitting me now. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have family in the area.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up, my mom was very distant from her family, so I didn't have as many like family events, quinceañeras. I actually don't think I've attended one. I've attended one quinceañera at 28 years old. One. That's almost like shameful to say.
No, man. It's okay.
Yeah, I got asked to participate in one.
You did?
Yeah.
You turned it down?
Yeah, I turned it down because I was like, I'm not dancing.
But you love dancing.
No.
If our listeners don't know, Eduardo does the best jerk dance.
Yeah.
Like, that song, You're a Jerk? Man, I couldn't keep up with him. I tried to do it. I think I pulled like a Achilles, but
that's the only one. But yeah, I mean,
but I can Harlem Shake though. Come on now.
Yep.
Harlem Shake's just
if we're talking
of
American culture, New York culture is what you took in.
Yeah,
that G-Unit era.
Because all my favorite rappers are from New York. Yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah. And Harlem Shaking is really Eskista. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's our Ethiopian traditional dance, shoulder movements, man. Exactly.
Y'all got that down. I've seen that. I'm so jealous of that. Like,
no, you'll learn, man. You'll learn. You got it down a little bit. It's not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad at all. Yeah. You got a little rhythm. That's good.
A little bit. But yeah, I mean, that in saying that little bit of background, we kind of explained what being a semi-American is, and it's not one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like different things. Like part of that of saying our country or my country, right? My country is...
What is your country? So now how do you... Like, when you say... Somebody asks you where you're from, how do you respond now?
That's such a huge question. So where are you from? I'm from D.C. I'm from the DMV area. But culturally, I'm from El Salvador.
Okay.
Right? So I consider...
So you give that answer? You say, I'm from D.C., but culturally, I'm from El Salvador?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yep.
The way that I respond to that question is, I guess, no, because I say I'm from Ethiopia, and I leave it at that, and usually, a question will follow. Oh, when did you come here? And then I'll say, oh, when I was 8. But I'm not, because I can't, if I try to sit there and explain my upbringing or like, hey, I'm actually, this is a path or
and
route
it also
that I
depends
took.
on who asks you, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Like if
it's at work, like, if I have some time, I can try to explain whatever. Sometimes I'll get wow, you don't have an accent. And I'm like, you should come to my house and listen to me speak in English with an accent. Yeah. You even notice when I pick up the phone, that hello is different when it's ma, or somebody who's Ethiopian.
Yeah.
It's different. Hello,
Yeah.
When I'm talking to you, it's like, hey, hello, what's up?
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's different. It's like all these little things that we have, But yeah, I go back to I'm from Ethiopia.
And it'd be interesting to see. You've been out in Europe, like when people have asked you at that point, it's the same response for you, right?
That's such a good question.
Because do you say...
you know what's crazy? I was just thinking about that. Because I was like, have I ever said I'm American? And the moments that I have is like when I'm going through the airport and I'm at the checkpoint or customs, and they ask to see your passport. So obviously, passport-wise, like I'm an American citizen, and you can't be a dual citizen if you're Ethiopian. So like I'd have to give up my U.S. citizenship, but I'm not gonna do that. When I'm here, I'm not a tourist. Versus if I'm somewhere else and they ask me where I'm from, I feel more comfortable saying like I'm visiting from America. Not necessarily I'm American.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's contextual.
It's going to be interesting when you go back home to Ethiopia, like how you would feel there. You know, you've mentioned that, running into Ethiopians that grew up in Ethiopia and came up to study here, you felt a little bit, maybe not out of place. You probably built a connection with them, but you had an understanding of where kind of you stood culturally.
In relation to them, yeah. In
relation to them culturally. Now imagine going back to Ethiopia.
Mm-hmm. Like my biggest worry of going back to Ethiopia is coming home broke. That's really my biggest concern. Like, I feel like the things that I'm going to see, I'm going to try to fix. Maybe even overcompensate for all the time that I missed. You know, like, there's so many avenues of improvement based off of the things that I'm seeing. Because, like I said, we still have a ton of family back home. Things that we hear straight from them. Things that, you read about. There's just so many different improvements just in general life that I feel like I would want to make for people.
Yeah.
And like I said, maybe a part of that is overcompensation from maybe not feeling all the way in touch with my home country as a result of not being around. Maybe that's that. But that's really my biggest concern. Whether people like me there or not, I mean, I'm not for everybody.
Yeah.
And there's people that don't like me in the States, and, I still make it work.
Yeah, yeah.
It is what it is.
But it's going to be an interesting feeling being back and being like, okay, this is my country.
Mm-hmm. I can't even imagine.
And trying to reconnect with that, right? Yeah. Because last time I was in El Salvador, I was 16, maybe 15.
Really? That was the last time?
Yep,
13 years ago.
Yep, I'm 28 now. And so going back, and like you said, there's things that definitely do need fixing. Mm-hmm. There's things that, we can definitely help our countries develop.
See, there you go. You said our countries, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, your association with El Salvador is probably stronger than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the sense that I get. Like, if I were to go back, my association with Ethiopia is only going to grow.
And that's developed, it can develop differently. Like for you, your parents definitely ingrained that in you.
100%.
My mom, like you said, she pushed Americanism, and I think it helped me.
I didn't say that. That was you. You trying to get me in trouble?
No. But you called it Americanism, and I agree that that's
wrong to say.
No, I don't think it's wrong to say.
Okay. I wasn't trying to put words in your mouth.
No. That defines it perfectly, I think. So, she definitely tried to ingrain that in me and kept me away from kind of the bad things of our culture. And every culture, American, Salvadorian, Ethiopian, has bad things for sure. Mm-hmm. We can say it's due to lack of education, lack of awareness. But there's areas that every country needs to grow in. And, for sure. I definitely wasn't proud of El Salvador for being the murder capital of the world. Mm-hmm. For being known for gangs. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to grow up like that and have other people perceive you in a certain way just because of where you're from.
Right. And that's interesting that you said, like you mentioned the homicide rate being so high, but that also has roots in America, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
With the gang members being deported to El Salvador.
That's correct.
Yeah. So, again, ties back into, this theme of, the domino effect, unintended consequences, maybe intended, who knows. But something that we definitely need to elaborate on and get into further detail about.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep. And being part of Semi-American, like I mentioned earlier, was
having an inside look into these existing systems.
Accountability. I think what makes it special is that we can look at these things, we can review them, and then talk about the accountability.
Yeah.
You know, like these things happened, and that's the way that they happened. And, you know, it's more of a what have we learned from it, and how do we move forward?
Right.
And how do we avoid similar problems in the future? That's really what it comes down to. So I think this is going to be a good platform, not only for us. I mean, in a way, it's like it's like bootleg therapy for us, but in other ways, it's also a way to bring together voices from different parts of the globe, and have them discuss their experiences as semi-Americans.
So just wrapping this up, we both made some great points here, and I think there's a lot more to discuss. Demographics are definitely changing in America. We're seeing a huge change. We just got the census report a couple months ago, so we're definitely going to have to discuss that. Immigration. What's the root of all of this immigration that's occurring? And it's still happening. I mean, right now, there's been these huge discussions about the border crisis, and we have issues.
Afghan refugees.
Yep, Afghan refugees. And it's interesting to see how Americans are taking Afghani refugees right now. Mm-hmm. And there's acceptance toward it, in a way. Interestingly enough.
I wonder how much of that has to do with perhaps feeling a personal responsibility. Yeah.
Feelings of guilt. But yeah, we'll definitely discuss American impact on immigration.
Definitely.
We're going to also discuss being black and Hispanic in America. There's a lot of things that we go through that, are kind of unspoken, that we've learned to kind of just brush off our shoulders. Definitely had emotional impact on us, 100%. Mental impact on us.
For sure. Yeah. Navigating through the professional world, as minorities, I think. And I don't even like using the word minorities, let's say like underrepresented. Sure. There's so many topics that I told you I'm incredibly excited about where, we're going to take these discussions. I mean, we come prepared, but in a lot of ways, we're also thinking on our feet. We're kind of having these discussions in real time. I think that's when you have your best conversations.
Yeah. And we're learning a lot about ourselves. I mean, even in these conversations, it's like...
and each other, really.
You bring up these topics that are definitely hard-hitting to who we are as individuals. And like I said before, it's the semi-Americans is a community.
Definitely.
We all come from different places. We all have different experiences. We all have different thoughts of what home is.
Yeah.
Because America is our home. But then we also have our countries that are our homes. So it's going to be interesting diving into that.
Definitely. And we've had these discussions, me and you have, about what our goal is. And is to have these genuine conversations. And hopefully it also helps any listener, helps put, positive energy out there, positive light on how... I guess it's more of a positive light and positive energy towards the difficult journeys that a lot of us have gone through and may still be within that difficult journey.
Right.
So as long as, bringing about some positive impact, I mean, that's...
And
that's
hearing stories of overcoming.
Yeah,
Stories
exactly.
of overcoming, because definitely we've overcome a ton of obstacles, a ton of self-doubt.
Yeah.
Self-doubt that's built into it, so...
Yeah. I mean, we of course, obviously, we stand on the shoulders of our parents and our family members and communities. But you said it perfectly. I completely agree.
Yep. So let's not forget, to comprehend the perspective of others, we have to be able to define our own.
And that's me signing off. No, I'm kidding. We should probably edit that part out. I'm sorry. I don't know why I tried to do that. Cool.
Oh,
all right. We'll see you on episode 2.
Episode 2. Let's go.
Peace.